Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers had prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black People Shit, Kenneth C. Ulmer has been a senior pastor of Faithful Central Bible Church in Los Angeles for 38 years. He was the founding board member and the former president of the King's University in Los Angeles. He's done postgraduate studies at Pepperdine University, Hebrew Union College, University of Judaism, and tons more. He received a PhD. And one that I am extremely proud of is that Dr. Ulmer is the founder and CEO of the Ulmer Institution, a nonprofit organization focused on the research, training, and treatment of psychological trauma in the urban community. So let me just bring Pastor, Dr. Bishop Kenneth C. Ulmer.
Whatever.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am so good. I'm a little biased, everybody, because this man and his wife have been, I guess, my covering for the last 20 years, ever since I moved to Los Angeles. They took me under their wing. They loved on me. They just, most of who I am, the way that I love on people in the community, in the world, when I'm on set, when I meet you, it's kind of based off of his teachings that he has given me over the years. So I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here.
It's a very biased show. I got to tell you that because I'm president of your fan club, and my wife and I, we're just so proud of you. Gosh, so proud of you. You've done good.
Thank you. Well, thank you. So let's just dive right in right now. One of the things that I want to say is part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show was when the pandemic started, I was feeling discouraged. I started watching people dying. Adrian's mom, who used to go to Faithful Central, I don't know if she still goes, but her mother had passed, and it just kept going on. Then I started listening to your messages, and they gave me hope. They got me back on track. I was like, yeah, I'm going to start doing things. I'm directing. And then the George Floyd situation happened. And I remember feeling a little numb because this has happened so many times, right? Like this wasn't anything new. But then something changed. And then I started to get really depressed. And then you had a message on your show. That you did during your service, where you talked about people in the church that were Christian that were not supporting the Black Lives Movement. So let me just bring that up real quick so that people can see one of the messages that you had right here. And let me just show this right here so people can get it. There we go.
You will protest. You'll write letters for the right to gather on this day. Thousands of you. I got that. I want to count the number of thousands of you who will go on with business as usual and not even feel a flinch for what's happening to my people. You don't look like your picture. I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people. You don't say nothing for your brother, your sister. You don't stand up for us. You speak in tongues from now on. Say a word in English for us. Say a word in English for the parts of the body that are hurting.
So that message changed for me, because what it did is it gave me permission to stop making everybody else feel comfortable when we're dealing with these situations. So my question for you is, why now? We've seen this happen so many times. Why did you speak up now? What changed?
You know, this we say it's happened before, but if we really look carefully, it's never been like this before. There's a passage, and God knows I don't want to get into a whole sermonic thing, but there's a passage in scripture where the Bible says God is doing a new thing, and the word for new means brand new. It means it's not a remodeling of an updated version. It's something brand new. And never. I mean, I've been doing this longer than you've been in the world. I've been doing this for. I went through the Martin Luther King thing and the Rodney King and 911 and the watch rights and all that. Been there, done that. It has never, ever, Chrystee, been like this. Think about it. Never, ever has there been a black man die. And we die every week. We die every day. We got all that. As a matter of fact, a month or so before George died, Ahmaud died. And that whole piece. And then the crazy woman up in Central Park. So it's been going on. But this one is different. Never. Somebody protested in all 50 states. Never before. 14 countries. Never before. No one knew who George Floyd was. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't high profile. The man came out of obscurity. So it's never been like this before. Black men die every day. We all know that. But for the first time in my lifetime, I'm 72 years old. For the first time in my lifetime, I've never said it like this, and I am optimistic, because here it is. There was a white lady who was in the protest at I think Pan Pacific Park near the Grove here in Los Angeles, and the reporter got the microphone and said, "Ma'am, why are you here? Why did you think it was important to be here?" And she had a tear in her eye. She said, "Because now I get it. Now I get it." To me, that's the difference. People beyond my new book, a shameless plug, my new book, Walls Can Fall. People beyond the walls now, people on the other side of the walls, they're getting it. White people are getting it. Orientals are getting it. Indians are giving it. Hispanic are giving it. And even though many of them have been part of this whole bias and prejudice and injustice thing before, it has never, ever been like this before. And I think that as the Bible says, God is doing something very unique, something very different. And I think this time the ball is going to move. They're not going to kick the can down the road anymore. I think there's been a pass here. I think that there are people who are getting on board who've never been before. Sure, there are some differences in theirs, but this one is different. I think this one is very different.
Did you feel like when you had that conversation, and I'll make sure you guys can get the link so you can see it, but do you feel like, or when you did it, did you feel like you were going to get a backlash, that people were going to say, "Oh, this isn't the Christian thing to do"?
I really didn't care. That wasn't too spiritual. I wasn't there. I was like the lady who said, "Now I get this thing. Now I get this thing." I mean, I've got degrees. I've taught in universities. All that. This time I see the system. There's a system here. There's an unjust, prejudice, bias, racist system here, and I realized that I was a part of it, and it was on this level. I've been through schools, and I've learned the Bible, front and back, and all that kind of stuff. I'm now realizing they systematically didn't tell me certain things. That was right there in the book. They didn't tell me that. Secondly, I've realized that, I think I said in one of these messages, that many times I've been invited into the lobby, but never to the room. You know, there were still, and it's kind of like, actually, it's kind of like in the business you're in entertainment, you know, the strides that have been made behind the camera, in front of the camera, you know, Ava DuVernay and all that, and Oprah, the fact that we're getting up where decisions are being made. I'm saying that within the church community, within church leadership, within religious communities, there's still that ivory tower, if you will. And many of us have only been allowed to get so high up into it. And so when this thing hit, it said, I'm saying, wow, that really is what's happening. And I've been a part of it. And so when I called out my friends, and there was another piece I did with 9 white friends of mine, dear friends of mine, Rick Warren and some other guys, we sat in a room and we kicked that thing around for almost 2 hours. And they heard my heart. It was good because they were friends. And so I wanted them to hear my hurt as friends, my marginalization as friends. And so for me, it was the fact that I just kind of realized I've been a part of this, in that I've learned to play the game, but it's still a game.
I think that's what's so hard, is because we all have learned how to play the game. And I think that's why the trauma continues to keep building in our bodies, because I've learned to play it. And when certain things would happen to me, or certain things, like I remember I was sharing last week how I had an audition and I realized they only called me in to fill their quota, that I really had no chance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. See, it's little subtle things like that are not very subtle. It's like you realize, you know, wow, they got one. I need one more. Call in Chrystee, check it off. We're done. Yeah. But nothing changes. Nothing changes.
Hold on. Say that one more time, because you were going in and out. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, I was saying that we learn to play the game, we learn how to get into the room, but we also learn that there are rooms behind the room. And so coming into a casting call, at any times you may be excited about it, but like you say, you realize they were meeting a quota. And that's a part of the game. That's a part of the system. And I think there is an awakening. There is an awakening now on very grassroots level, at higher in the hierarchy level. There are eyes that are being opened and said, you know, we've been there, done that. It's time for a new game now.
Had to mute my mic. I think that's really good. When you had, so Bishop, just so that everybody knows who's watching, Bishop had a meeting with 9 of his friends that were all pastors, big mega churches, small mega churches, all of the above. And he really got deep down and dirty. And he asked the question, and I thought this was so key, which was racism is deals with the heart. And it's not about race, like it's really just about like we are not talking about it in the church. And if these pastors do not go and have these conversations with their congregation, nothing is going to change. And one of the key things that you said that I thought was so powerful that I need to just post as one of my quotes is racism is sin.
It is sin. And I know that some of those guys in that room have never said that from a pulpit. And some of these guys pastor not tens, not hundreds. Some of these guys pastor tens of thousands of people. There were guys in that room who on a given weekend will see 40, 50, 60,000 people, 1,000 people. That's, I mean, my hometown doesn't have that many people in it, you know? And so, but I know that there were guys in that room, number one, who have never, ever from that pulpit said racism is a sin. Number two, I know others that were in that room who have, and boast of having multicultural, you know, we have a lot of black people go to our church, you know, and one guy, you know, who shall remain nameless, but one guy with tears in his eyes, he said, but I heard what you said in that message, and I realized not one of them is in a position of leadership, a position of power, a position of making decisions, a position of shaping this church, not one. And he said, I had to go back and I repented. And so he's making some changes. So that's kind of what happened with that. And at the point, like I said, I really didn't care. I wanted them to know that I know. You know, you know, I don't know how many you're in the business. How many of your white actress friends, you know, go in and drop your name and know that you got cut out because you were just there for a quota or whatever. You know, it's on that kind of level, and you would have to have a relationship with them to say, hey, look, you left me out here hanging. I said that. I said, you know, you guys, we pray together. You go to my church, I go to your church. We travel around the world together. We do conferences together. You know, but when stuff like this happened, the George Floyd stuff, not a one of you stand up. Not one of you guys take a stand. Not one of you guys put me out here, and you don't have my back. You don't have my back, and you're supposed to be my friend. Yeah, I was really kind of pissed off that day. Sorry about that.
I mean,
can I say that on your show? I'm sorry. Can I say that on your show? I'm sorry.
Well, I do have one swear word on my show, so you can say that. This is not too bad. That's not too bad. Do you feel like when you had this conversation with your friends and your pastors, do you think they got it? And do you think that they're actually going to make a change? And before you answer that, let me see. Yvette Harris said they don't address anything that does not affect their bottom line. Black ties matter. Black lives don't matter. That's interesting. Yep, that's interesting. So do you feel like they got it? And do you feel like they're bold enough to actually speak up and say something to their congregation about it?
Short answer, yes. Many of them were convicted to the point of silence. Many of them were convicted to the point of silence. And I because I talked to a couple of them after that. And so short answer, I think they did get it. And I think they got it more than that. I think they received it because they were my friends. You know what I mean? You know, you have some white friends in the business that you could say some things to them and they'll hear it because, you know, Chrystee's my friend. That's my girl, you know. And so I came from a relationship, not from a condemning perspective, but from a relationship basis that said, hey, look, you know, I'm supposed to be your friend. We're supposed to be friends, you know. And so it was from that perspective that I think they did. Like I said, I know one guy that literally went home and called a meeting of his whole board. I know he did. So short answer, I think they did.
Okay. All right.
I don't think they would have if I had not said anything, though. I don't think anybody in that room, maybe one or two. I don't think those guys in that room would have made those changes. They would have not have addressed it with their board, at least if I had not. And I know more because they received it as a friend.
I have to say that it was because I've been watching them all, and it's funny because when I go on my walks in the morning, that's the time that I spend with God. And so that's when I listen to a lot of your messages. And I do feel like a lot of them were very sincere. One of the things that you said that I loved was, don't stand with me, hugging me, saying you are with me, and not call out that racism is a sin, especially to your congregation. And I just thought that was so powerful. I just remember walking and just saying that because it's like, it's so real. Like, don't sit here and hug me and say how much you love me and care. And all these people are calling me, are you okay? But they're not. I don't know if they're really getting it, because if they see my brother on the street, if they see, you know, who's chocolate and big and, you know, all of that, or if they see my family members, are they going to feel the same way? But I know that I'm different, you
Good
know.
Point. See, one of the guys told me a story about how he was in high school and he was on a basketball team and he was friends with one of the black guys, and they would play ball together and everything. And he said, and the Lord taught me, how to love black people because of whatever the guy's name was. I said, okay, stop right there. Now, you love him or you love people like him? And he stuttered. He literally he said, I never thought about it like that. I said, oh no, I know you got that one, but I'm talking about folk who look like him in the grocery store or in the market or whatever. People that look like him, or in the car next door to you, And so that gripped him. because I get the baby step things, But when you put it on that level, it is. And if you do get it with just people like him, then why don't you speak up for us? Why don't you vote like you care? How can you see stuff like that happening that directly negatively impacts us, and you don't say anything? Oh no, I know you. I know your high school friend. I know you got one. Everybody got one. So you got a token black friend. I got that. But why don't you stand with us? You stand with me in the pulpit. You stand with me in a prayer circle. Why don't you stand in those institutional, those systemic, those political things that you know negatively impact people like me, but you don't do it. Don't do it. I was at a meeting. I was at a meeting with some young pastors a couple of days after that, and a very interesting question. A young man asked me this. He says, well, when should you say something? When should you say something? And you know, I have some white friends, and when should I say something? I said, when you realize that you don't mind losing their friendship, you'll say it. If you need to be their friend, if something in you needs to be able to say you have that guy is your friend, or call it name, whatever, then you'll never say anything. You're never going to rock the boat. When you realize that you don't need him, or the flip side, that if he really was serious, then he would do certain things, then you'll say something. But as long as you need him in your contact list, or in your phone, or whatever it is, as long as you need to be able to say that's your friend, you'll never say anything. You will never say anything, man. Yeah.
It's interesting because I don't know if you read or saw the news that just came out about a pastor in Columbus, Mississippi, who just got voted out of his church because he preached about racism, and they voted him out immediately.
Didn't know it. Send me that clip. I'm looking for those, because one of the guys in that round table with my friends, he and I were talking about it, and I said, man, you know, we're having a good talk. I said, but here's the problem. If you go back and you say this to your people, it's going to cost you something, and part of it, it's going to cost you some members. Some people are going to leave your church if you do this. And he said, well, yeah, I guess. I said, no, don't guess. I'm telling you right now, you're going to lose them. And sure enough, he lost some. So I'd like to see that clip, because I'm looking for guys like that, because I believe it. In a New York minute. I believe it.
Took 2.2 seconds. He was out. He was out of there.
Yep.
So talk about the fact that you were 30 years old when you realized that there were Black people in the Bible. Because I don't even know if a lot of people know that.
That really ticked me off, and it hurt me, because that's when I learned about the system. That's when I learned systemic bias and systemic racism, institutional racism. Okay, so here's the setting. I've got a few degrees. Okay, so I take a class, for example, on the book of Acts. And the phrase is verse by verse, line upon line, precept upon precept. And the whole class consists with starting at Acts 1:1 and going to the end of that chapter, end of that book. That's the class. And so I go through that whole class. I get an A in the class. Because I said this is what that white man told me to say. It was years later until I learned that in chapter 13, actually chapter 2 in first chapter 13, there are Black folk all over that book. No one told me that. In other words, there's an educational, academic, institutional system that systematically looks over that. One of my mentors was just passed a while back, Dr. Kane Felder, who was the dean of the School of Divinity at Howard University, one of my mentors. And he says, we must learn to view the Bible with a hermeneutic of suspicion, Hermeneutic means to interpret. He says, you learn to when you read scripture, you assume that whatever that commentary said, or whatever that preacher said, or whatever, you're suspicious that it may say a little bit more than that. And maybe you didn't tell me the whole story. So what grieved me, really it made me very angry, was that I had gone through an academic system that did not tell me that I was in that book, that I got degrees and I got grades and that kind of thing, because I learned what they taught me, but they did not teach me everything that was in that book. And so I'm 30 some years old when I realized, wow, it was in there all the time. This is not something new. It's been there in the Bible the whole time the Bible's been written. but nobody told me. No, two things really make me very angry in my whole walk with Christianity. That nobody told me. I had been divorced twice before anybody ever told me what the Bible says about marriage, divorce. I'd been divorced twice, and then I was grown and over 30 before I realized that nobody told me that there were Black people in that Bible. I was very bitter. I was very bitter for a while. The Lord had to heal me on that. But I was very bitter because I'm saying it's not like I want to put something in there that's not there. It's been there all the time. And you knew it was in there and you never told me. That hurt me a lot.
So was it that you weren't able to see it for yourself, or was it just in something, another big book or something like that showed it that they were actually Black?
No, you know what? A friend of mine from Dallas preached it. He preached on that passage, and then I'm saying that is what it says. It's right there. It's indisputable. It's right there. I mean, Acts chapter 2 when it names the countries. Nobody said those are African countries. Right. When it says in Acts chapter 13, the leaders, not just the members of the church, the leaders in the church, Acts chapter 13, one, the Bible says calls his name and it says he was the Niger, Niger, and that's translated the Black one or the Black man. And then the other one was a man named Lucius. Now, I don't know about him, but every Lucius I know was a brother. I don't know too many white Luciuses, but I'm just saying it's right there. And nobody ever told me that. And it really made me very angry. It really made me very angry.
Before we jump into your book, let me see. Hold on. There's a question here that, where is the question? Do you have a question regarding Apostle Price, which is Fred Price, and what he experienced when he talked about Blacks in the Bible and racism in America?
Apostle Price is a very dear friend of mine. My wife and his wife were friends for many years, and the incident that led to that book hurt me because it hurt him, and the kinds of things that he felt were the same kinds of things that made me do the message that you heard. Okay,
can you say that one more time, because you went out? Can you say that one more time?
The things that he said in that book and the incident that led to that book were similar to the things that I felt when I gave the message that you heard. The scenarios were different. He's a friend of mine. I highly respect him. A little side note, it was through Dr. Price that God taught me that God is not prejudiced. Because when he built the Faith Dome, it gave me enough faith to go out and buy the Great Western Forum. That's a whole nother story. I ain't got time for that right now. But my point is, when he went through that scenario that led to that book that he wrote on race, which is a classic, but that book was written out of pain. It was written out of the pain of a man who called him, and they claimed each other as his Black son, and Dr. Hagen was called, Dr. Price called him his white father. And then a whole issue came out about racism that Hagen's son said, and Dr. Price said, "Hey man, you can't leave it out there." It was about, you can't mix races and God, that's against the will of God and everything. And so Dr. Price called him on it, and eventually he ended up writing that book on race, which is a classic. I recommend it to anybody, but that book was written out of pain.
Wow. This is great. Let's see. Financial wealth has been built on the backs of slaves. Now that they stand in their own, they don't want to know us, live around us, or provide any opportunities. And then Tim said, no law can change a heart. Racism deals with the heart. Does the church have a role in ushering in racial reconciliation and confronting our national origin sin?
See, that's what excites me so much. Because I think there are three elements to how do we change this thing? I think there are three elements. There's a bottom down, there's a bottom up, there's a top down, and there's a divine intervention sideways. First of all, I think it begins with conversations like this. It begins with relationships. It begins. I'm asking my white friends, what are you guys saying to your sons and your daughters with all this stuff on the TV now?
what's happening in your home? How are you explaining this to your kids? So I think it begins on a family level, on relationship level, on a dialogue conversation level. My fear right now is that many white people are looking, and you're going to hear it too. I hear it all the time. What can we do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? Two things about that. First of all, I think as my son, Dr. Brian Laritz says, he says, I think we want to move to a solution merely to sanitize our conscience. We want to move to a solution. We want to do something to say we did something without ever dealing with the real issues, the history, the economics, the policies, the institutions of racism. That's one thing. That we want to move so fast, we don't want to have the hard conversations. So I think that begins with conversations. That's from the bottom up. Top down, I think there are institutions, like I just said, schools, universities, educational systems, history books, etc., politics that have to be addressed. In other words, if we can say whatever we say in the street, but if the history books don't acknowledge that they have eliminated us, little is going to change in the academic system. If politics don't change, the laws don't change, then likewise, nothing is going to change, because there are laws that people can hide behind. So I'm saying what my fear right now is that the young people and the people who are marching now and protesting, and I got that, go ahead and march, go ahead and protest, go ahead and carry a sign. But when you get through marching, march right on over to the ballot box and vote somebody out and vote somebody in and vote those issues that have to do with the liberation and justice that relates to our people. On the other hand, I think all of that, and my brother is absolutely right, all of that has to still come under the umbrella of we can change the laws, only God can change the heart. That's where my white friends and the black and the church in general comes in, because only God can change the heart. I think he's doing it. I think it's happening, but I think it's also calling into account those parts of the body of Christ, namely the white church, that has been silent on this for too long. And so it kind of puts the ball back in our court. And so God says, you want to see some change? Get out there and make some change, but you got to say some stuff and change what you've been saying. And that falls right back into the court of the church. I agree with it. It's a God thing.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up, Susan, because I don't want you to be like, how come this girl got me on this for so long? Besides the fact that you have written a ton of books, and I know I've read at least 2 of them. You have a new book that's called Walls Can Fall, which I'm going to pull up. So give us a little bit more information about it, why you wrote it, what you're trying to get out of it. And I think it's very interesting because I heard you say that when you wrote it, they told you that it wouldn't sell because nobody would buy a book about race. And I thought that was very interesting.
No one would publish this book. I've written about, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 books. And 2 publishers that I've done books with before would not publish this book. And the third one said, I'm going to tell you why. He said, nobody will buy a book on race. No one wants to buy a book on race. No one wants to hear a book on race. I said, what do you mean? He said, because my liberal friends will remain liberal and my racist friends will remain racist. I said, I beg your pardon? He says, it's a discussion that no one wants to have. And so this book was written because someone said, nobody's going to buy it. This book, the first line of this book, first line of first chapter 1 says this: I am a recovering racist. I have never pushed a book like this before, and I've done about a dozen of them, because this book was written out of pain. This book was written out of a process that really describes a journey. Yes, it's scholarly. Yes, it's theological. Yes, it's all that, it's got some weight to it, but it really tracks part of my journey. And as I said, the opening line is, I am a recovering racist. I tell the story in there of some scars that I went through when I was a kid, I'm 70 years old. I've been carrying some of this stuff 60 years old. I just went to my therapist a couple weeks ago to get some of that stuff off, but I'm just saying it's a journey, but also it is a testimony to the power of God to bring down walls of racism and prejudice and injustice. I talk about a Desmond Tutu. Man, I met Desmond Tutu, changed my life. Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, mystical, changed my life. And I talk about his theology of how it began to bring about the changes in South Africa with apartheid. I plead with you, as Paul would say, I beseech you by the mercies of God. Get this book. It will bless you. It will encourage you. It will raise some questions, and it will urge you to do more in the name of justice.
Well, I just want to say thank you. You have always been such an inspiration to me. I so appreciate your love between you and your wife. You guys have encouraged me throughout the years. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to bring in my co-host, even I think one. Let me just bring them in just so that you can meet them real quick before you jump off. This is Abdul Majid, who is a writer, and Janora McDuffie, who is an actress as well. We wanted to say thank you for bringing here, and all of you guys, make sure that you guys get the book, Walls Can Fall, Race, Reconciliation, and Righteousness in a Divided World by Kenneth C. Ulmer. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you guys so much. Love you so much, Chrystee. You guys have good taste in friends, I'll tell you. God bless you.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye. Oh, wow.
That was deep.
It was deep. It was deep. Everybody, thank you so much. I was trying to stay engaged. I was also trying to read your messages all at the same time and bring them in, but he was on a flow. So I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, it was just deep. It was deep. Yeah. He's such a powerful man. What did you guys get out of it?
Man, I was ready for the collection plate. Not just for Bishop, but for folks viewing live. I wrote down a few things.
Wow.
In fact, yes, Yvette, I know you popped this one up on the screen, but Black ties matter, girl. What? That was deep. And
right,
it really speaks to the system within the beautiful journey to find God, you know?
Yeah.
And something else that I wrote, Christina said, just like COVID can't see systems in place that keep Black folks out. Christina, you were dropping some knowledge with that too. So thank you for that. Martin Luther King said the most segregated hour of the day is Sunday at 11 a.m., right?
Yes.
So I think there's just power and lots to be called out within the church system, especially in a time like this when if you are a true believer and if God created everyone equal and we all are brothers and sisters, then you're right, Chrystee. And I'm so glad that you had Bishop to say everybody should be part of the fight. And it is interesting for our white evangelical brothers and sisters to see things completely differently, and not all.
Right.
Because I really watch myself when it comes to generalizations, but that part is painful. And I do think that's got something to do with if I'm not worshiping beside you and you at the church across the way. In fact, speaking of that, I don't even know if my mom was watching today, but she loves her church. She goes to New Red Mountain Baptist Church in Durham, North Carolina. There are two with the exact same name, and they are directly across the street from each other. And one is the Black version and one is the white version.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and that brings up, I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier before the show, Sean King's comments about bringing down the white Jesus statue as a sign.
Oh, I totally forgot to ask him
right?
that. Yeah. So, Abdul, anything real quick before we get, just so you guys know, we are going to get into some current events, things that are happening that are current. So just want to make sure I got a recap. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just try to make it as quick as possible. I like your Reverend's optimism. I'm not sure if I'm equally as optimistic. I think looking at this, I think in America, speaking specifically about America, I believe white and Black people have a different overarching philosophy. I think you can't get close to God unless you get close to the truth. And I think Black people and white people value the truth differently. I think to Black people, the truth is sacrosanct. We value the truth because our lives literally depended on the truth. Whereas to white people, they look at the truth as something, if it benefits them, then they'll use it. But if it doesn't benefit them, they won't use it. So my concern is, how can two groups of people who value the truth differently come together to an understanding? Because if you don't understand, if we can't understand empirical truths, how do we understand religious truths?
Right.
And then what is a religious truth when everybody's not talking about hermeneutic of suspicion? I wrote that down too. I don't even know if I'm saying that, but the way that we can discuss the Bible or discuss books that are missing from the Bible. So yeah, that's a really good point, Abdul.
I think the idea of religion across the board with all three denominations, it's about the truth with regards to the truth of God, the truth of understanding of the afterlife, the truth of understanding behavior, specifically behavior. Because even if you go back to Judaism, if you go back to Christianity, if you go to Islam, one of the main tenets of everything is just truth about behavior. And even in that, we can't come to an understanding as to why this group of people are better than this group of people based on a basic truth: love thy neighbor. And we can't even get to that truth. So if we can't understand that truth, then I'm not as hopeful as the Reverend is. I want to be. I really, really want to be. I do. But we view things differently.
Yeah.
And if you can't in your heart say something as simple as that person in the book was black, then what truth are you watching?
Right. I just want to say, hold on. I just want to say, Chris, Keena, Tangerine, I think you guys are on Shelly, Terrence, Daphne, Stefan. You guys are all on a different thing. I think because I did it as a watch party. So we're not seeing your messages, but just so you guys know that I do see you on my personal phone. So I do see your messages. So thank you for, and Max and all them. Thank you for chiming in. So, and Terry. So anyway, go ahead. You were going to say something real quick before we jump in.
I was going to talk about the truth that you used as the example, Abdul, is so-and-so in the Bible was black. Lucius was black. I do have a friend named Lucius, and he is black in contemporary times. So Bishop Ulmer example was correct. How about that can even be disputed by someone who wants to, I don't know, not recognize that. But what you cannot not recognize is that my brother is hurt. And as a person with a heart, I'm going to connect to you from that space. So maybe not necessarily text and written words, but you can't dispute my heart beats and bleeds and my blood is red and so is yours. And I'm connected in that space from something that's greater. And when that is disputed, that becomes challenging as well. And just in terms of having a conversation about coming together.
Karen, I'm sorry I missed your message. I would have asked him about the Jesus situation, so I missed it. Thank you. Sorry about that. And then I think that's it. Okay. Let's move on to some. Yes.
Just one last thing, because I know I was talking about the heart and it deals with a comment by Tim. Tim talked about racism deals with the heart. Yes. I actually feel like conscious racism deals with the heart. Like if I see you and you black and I don't like black folks, that's some shit in your heart that's dirty. But I feel like the racism that we are living in now isn't this conscious racism. And I think the step that needs to happen is people, and Bishop talked about this too, just being awakened to all the stuff that's going on, all the systems, whether it's economic, educational, healthcare, that is interwoven, that is racist. When you become awake to that, then you can decide whether or not your heart beats and is connected to mine and you want to do something about that.
Right. Yeah, there's some. I think people know. I think sometimes maybe they don't know, but I think people know. So, but I do want to jump into some of these current events that are happening. Let's talk about D.L. Hughley and the COVID-19 vaccine testing. So D.L. Hughley passed out. We found out that he had COVID. Which I don't know why he didn't have his behind in the house, but that's a whole nother thing out there, making his money. But also, too, they were talking about testing. One of the things that they were saying is that Black people should be one of the first couple of that should be tested, because a lot of Black people are getting the COVID-19. But a lot of Black people are like, y'all been testing on us way too long. We ain't getting tested. Y'all gonna test it on everybody else first. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for me, in terms of D.L. Hughley not keeping his ass at home, I think there's so many mixed messages out there about this COVID-19. Is it gone? Is it still here? Are we wearing masks? Are we not wearing masks? I think because there's such confusion about what to believe, who to believe, I think for some, it's allowed people to let their guard down. And in terms of testing, no, skip me. We're not doing that. No.
Yeah, no.
I think that Black people have good reason to be suspicious. Historically, we've been the guinea pigs of this country, economically, physically, emotionally, spiritually. They just test everything on us to see how it works. And then if it works well, they use it on everybody else. So as a Black person, I'd be suspicious to anyone asking us to do something that they believe is right for us, because historically they've never done anything right for us.
Yeah, I mean, not only are we talking about the Tuskegee experiment where they gave us all syphilis, but they also experimented. I shared with some people about them testing radiation on Black people. And they have literally have a hole in their head because they were giving them too much radiation. So there's a lot of stuff that they've been testing. And I think, Abdul, you brought up something else that that they tested some stuff on us. So no, I'm not getting tested.
Think about the idea that Fannie Lou Hamer, the civil rights activist, had a surgery for one thing, and then they tied her tubes without her knowing. Like, they've done experiments on us left and right. So I would be suspicious. I would think that every Black person should be suspicious, because you can't trust a person who's never done right for you before to expect them to do right for you now. Like,
right.
I'll wait for a minute, but
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I know that we definitely should, we are dying at a higher rate. And I do feel like there's some things that should be happening, but y'all not going to put that on me. So not going to happen.
I think part of the thing is that many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first and then come to me with a vaccine.
Yeah.
How about that?
Absolutely. They're acting like the reason it's affecting us disproportionately is it's our fault. Like there's a Black that's bad. No, you've been feeding me church's chicken my whole life. And my grandma's. So let's talk about that.
How about when on Alvarado, when here in Los Angeles, there is a street that is close to downtown, but it looks like, I think it's mostly Hispanic at the moment. But I literally counted 10 McDonald's every 3 blocks that were on that street. So yes, that's one. And then 2, all of the trauma of us having to suppress all of the things that we are going through, or the racism that we've had and experienced, having to suppress, like, oh, well, they didn't mean it, and having to deal with that. I think that's another thing that is causing our bodies to break down. You know what I mean? So go ahead.
Last week, the sister who was on the show spoke about epigenetics. She spoke specifically about the fact that we have trauma in our DNA that's passed on from generation to generation and has not stopped from the time we got to this place till now. Now, she said hopefully it can be overturned through positive activities and positive love and things of that nature. But as it stands, yes, I think many of our trauma is embedded in our DNA. And
Right. Okay, so let's move over to the fact that Uncle Ben's and Aunt Jemima and all of these names are being changed because, it was kind of racist back in the day. But what do you guys think? I mean, a part of me feels like, I'm not going to lie. A part of me feels like, wow, I kind of don't want their legacy to disappear and just be called something else. And, I feel really bad that this woman who actually was a real person who traveled around and promoted this product, is now her history is going to be wiped away. How do you guys feel about it?
Yeah, I've got mixed feelings too. I definitely love me some Auntie Mama pancakes, and we talked about for both of us how our grandmothers were maids in the home. Now, granted, Mama was Auntie Mama the slave, or was this post-slavery Auntie Mama came?
No, she wasn't. I don't think I don't think she was a slave, because she was getting paid to travel around and doing demonstrations. Yeah, doing demonstrations. Yeah.
I just want to make sure I got my facts right in terms of where she entered the picture. So as recognizing our history in that way, where we see it as love, as in a positive thing. But if we take the lens, and I saw Trevor Noah's coverage of this, and he had the original Auntie Mama box, and she was just like, "Ooh, we, got y'all's pancakes." So that, if you think of that as a negative connotation and showing us as Conan, then no, we do need to change it. But it's such a fine line. And then, because I'm not like, oh no, hell no, we got to change Auntie Mama, does that mean I've been washed by the culture by being in 2020 and living in an age where it's okay? So I don't know. It's a situation where I have to check myself at the same time.
Abdul, do you remember her real name? The story behind her?
Yeah, it slips my mind off the top of my head. I read the whole thing about it, and even the picture of her where she was chained to a table, but they only showed the picture from her waist up. But if you showed the full body picture, she had a shackle on her ankle that was connected to the table. But yeah, okay, I saw that. My thing about this.
Sorry, Myron, I don't remember her name off the top of my head. My apologies.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'll look for it. My thing about this is that I don't care about. I'm so beyond the apologies and the symbolism. I don't need white tears. I need white sacrifice. I need white people to be willing to sacrifice a boardroom seat. I need white people to sacrifice money to push over from their school district to my school district. So if all the images of Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben and every other black person they want to put in a box goes away for the life of us. If you get our schools better, if you get our food better, if you get our water better, if you have more people in the boardrooms, I could care less. I appreciate the woman who did it, but she served the purpose. She served the purpose to show that we are part of society. Now that she showed the purpose that we are part of society, integrate us in society now, in your boardrooms, in the classrooms, in the office spaces. That's what I need. I could, but God bless her for what she did.
Well, there was on Netflix, there's a show called Big Mouth, but they actually recast one of the characters that was biracial and they're making it a black voice actor now instead of using a white person. So people are making some changes in that direction.
There are two people in the comment section, Yvette Harris and Alicia Lawrence. They said her name was Nancy Green.
Thank you, Myron, Nancy Green. There you go. And so Tangerine said she's on another feed, but she said she was the Popeyes chicken lady of their day. So yeah. So anyway, I just want to make sure that we said that. And then there's also some stuff that's happening there are TV shows that are on Netflix and Hulu and a couple of other ones. 30 Rock is taking their blackface episode. Scrubs, which is the show that I was on. Kill me now. They had a blackface episode that has now been pulled. Jimmy Kimmel and Tina Fey, they all apologize for doing blackface. I would say probably 2000s, maybe 90s as well. I probably more 2000s. What are your thoughts on those?
I think it's a fine line between let's just take out everything that is offensive to completely erase, but let's not forget. Let's not wipe out history completely. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's make it an educational moment. And back to what Abdul said, if you feel so bad, give me your seat in the writer's room. Put a black person as a showrunner for your network if you feel that.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say that even with Bishop, he said like, or no, I'm sorry. There was actually something I just saw right before we came on where they were talking to the CEOs of banks. And the guy asked the question, do any of you CEOs, when you retire, do you think a black person of color, a person of color who is a woman, a black woman, I think they were trying to say, would be able to take over? And none of them raised their hand.
Nope.
Because they know they're not going to replace them with somebody of color. They're not going to replace them with a black woman or anything like black. It actually was Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah was the one that brought it up.
I think that I think it's somewhat commendable that they're attempting to right a wrong, but the idea that they never saw it as wrong at the beginning is troublesome. I think that I saw an interview with Jon Stewart a couple of days ago on The Breakfast Club, and he mentioned the fact that when he was doing a episode of The Daily Show, he did an impersonation of Herman Cain, and he went back a couple of days later, and the one black writer in the room told him that the impersonation and what he did was racist. And he said that he got offended by it and took him a couple of days to get over the fact and get him over himself and get over his feelings about how he felt about being called out, the fact that he thought it was a good bit, he thought he was doing a good thing. And my just take on all of this, and I don't mean to seem such a pessimist about this, is like you wouldn't want it for you. I remember when what is her name?
Jane Elliott. Is that where you're going?
No. I was talking about the whole depiction of Roseanne Barr when she had those burnt cookies. She had those burnt. She was dressed like Hitler and had these burnt cookies, and she thought it was funny, and nobody thought it was funny. She got canceled and kicked off of TV, and they said it was anti-Semitic and all this other stuff. So burnt cookies on the cover of a magazine or a picture of some burnt cookies symbolizing the Holocaust or whatever it was is offensive to you. Why isn't painting your whole face black not equally offensive? Like that just goes beyond how you do not make that connection. That's me.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. I just want to jump now to Juneteenth. Yeah, celebrating Juneteenth up in the house. I always learned that the reason why they called it Juneteenth was because they didn't know the actual day. But now I'm starting to read more that it was the 19th. So that was something that I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was the 19th. I thought we just didn't know specifically what it was. But did you guys celebrate? Did anybody out there celebrate?
Yeah, throw it in the comments. One thing that I will admit to is I've always known what Juneteenth was, but I've never consciously been like, yo, we about to shut it down. We're going to celebrate. We're going to do something. So I hate that it has taken this climate and this long in my life to celebrate Juneteenth like I would July 4th. And I'm happy that the country is in this journey with me. Except Abdul, as the woke folk who have been doing he was in the womb celebrating Juneteenth. I will admit that. So I'm happy to have had this time and space to truly honor what a great day in history. Although we still got a ways to go, but we're gonna celebrate everything along the way.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to I'm from New Jersey, and there used to be a show. I don't know if it came on syndicated anywhere else. The show was called Like It Is. It came on New York, and there was a guy named Gil Noble. And Gil Noble, in my early age, is responsible for a lot of my political education, because he would always talk about, every weekend it was a show about Black issues and Black people and things that were going on. And he made it a point every year to discuss Juneteenth, to celebrate Juneteenth. You go up to Harlem, they would have little, in the Northeast, it wasn't as prominent as it was in the South for specific reasons, being that the way that it was more of a California, New York, Arizona thing, and then it came to New York later by the 90s. But that's when I was around. So they would have like mini celebrations and things. So things in the museum. So I just thought it was a great thing. I think it should continue to be a good thing. I think we should get paid for it. We should be paid a national holiday. And but I love Juneteenth. I spend my most of my holidays with my family. So that's Black celebration as it is. So.
I saw you out there, Tangerine, having a good time. I just want to give a little shout out to Dale, who is in the audience as well. She's a friend of mine. She and I have been going back and forth with dialogue about we're both Christians and trying to explain to her what was going on. And she did. She asked, the questions, what can I do? How can I support? And I have to say that she's been really open to receiving, to listening. And I just want to say I appreciate you for, just being a part of it. And one day we'll have you on the show. We can, just talk about it from your perspective of being a white person who's dealing with all the stuff that's going on. So I want to make sure yes.
Really quickly, I think to any white person watching the show, please don't be attacked by the things that we're saying. We're just talking about our feelings at the moment. And the show is called Words and Deeds. So if you really, really, really want to support us and help us, your words are nice, but your deeds are better. So do something.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
And I was just going to say one last thing about Juneteenth. If it was this lit, Kwanzaa better watch out.
Exactly. Amir, who's on another feed, said Tony Brown's journal, and then Antonio said, hey Chrystee, saying hey to me. So we want to get to our BPS of the week so that we can close out. It is 5:00, and I do have another show that I have to do at 6:00 for my college. But we want to bring up our BPS of the week. And let me just bring that up for you. We always like to choose someone who is doing something that stands out in the community. And this particular person, let me just bring it up, her beautiful face right there. So this beautiful person is our BP person of the week, and it goes to Opal Lee, a 93 young activist from Fort Worth, Texas, who has been championing the cause to make Juneteenth a national holiday for over 40 years. In 2016, at the age of 89, Opal decided to do a walk from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. in an effort to make Juneteenth a federally observed holiday. She walked 2.5 miles a day to symbolize the 2.5 years it took Black Texans to be informed of their freedom by the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. I'll get my words right. This past Sunday, Opal got one step closer to seeing her dreams come true after doing a 2.5 mile signature walk to celebrate the 155th year of Juneteenth. She got a surprise video call from Sean Puffy Combs, who informed her that her petition to make Juneteenth a national holiday just got its 1 millionth signature. In that conversation, Opal said that this is just phase one. We still need to keep the pressure on lawmakers, so the public should contact their U.S. senator and representatives to voice their support for the national Juneteenth holiday. So for all of your tireless efforts in uplifting the Black community, and for showing us all that no matter your age, you can always make an impact. Miss Opal Lee, you are our BPS person of the week. And of course, I'm Chrystee Pharris. That was This Week in Black People Shit. And to anyone who wants to join Opal's cause to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, please visit her website at www.opalswalk2dc.com and sign her petition. So, before we close out real quick, is there anything you guys would like to say? drop any knowledge. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Sid and Kevin and Chris and go ahead, Jennifer.
I just wanted to shout out everybody who was watching, like you said, and especially those in the comments when we talked about Juneteenth who used it as a day to support Black business. So that's what's up, and let's make that every day that we have the opportunity to do so. And in terms of what's going on with me, it's cancer season. My birthday's coming up. That's exciting. And if you want to follow me and my journey personally, you can do so at J McDeezie, JMCDEEZIE, and that's on Instagram, and Janora McDuffie on Facebook.
I was about to write it down, but I don't think I could do it fast enough. Go ahead.
To everybody listening, this is about participation. This is a collective issue. We need everybody involved. So do your best to join the cause in whatever capacity you have. You can't march, if you could write, if you can call somebody, if you can post something, if you can do something behind the scenes, if you can donate. Whatever it is, I believe that if you are a person of faith and you believe in God, then you should believe in by equality.
Yes. And I just want to say, I do have a teen show that I will be doing on Tuesday, June 30th. And we will be discussing how young people feel, how teens are affected by the pandemic, and also this fight in watching George Floyd get murdered on national TV. So make sure you guys check it out. Come support the young people. A special episode on Tuesday. And of course, we'll see you next week at 4:00 and This Week in Black People Shit. All right. Tangerine said, get you a ring light.
I saw it. This is perfectly done. I don't like being on camera. This is perfect.
And thank you, Rihanna. I know that you're on the other side, so thank you for watching the show as well. So, all right, everybody. Have a good night.
All right. Take care, you guys.